You can't be carefree as a mom. You can come off as carefree.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work though. I like that we coordinated outfits without even planning to.
I know. You were walking down the driveway and I was like, oh, this is like the millennial mom uniform. Black yoga pants or leggings and dark gray. It was so painfully millennial. I was like, oh, we match.
Yeah, well, we were born in 1993, so.
It's so old. The early 90s.
Oh my God, I know. You know, people who were born in 2004 can drink legally now? 2004.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
And 2000, right?
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's 20.
Because 2000 is before 2004 also.
Oh my God, motherhood melted my brain. Just kidding. I was actually like this before. I can't even blame that on my kid. I'm like, I was actually kind of
mom brain. I was like, no, actually, I just have always been stupid.
People were saying that during my pregnancy. They were like, oh, pregnancy brain, like at work. And I'm like, no, I'm actually just stupid.
Like, no, I've actually been like this my whole life.
Oh my gosh. Well, welcome, guys. Welcome back for season 3.
Yay!
I'm so excited. This is Shelf Absorbed podcast. And the book that we selected today is Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder. For anyone who's new here or new listeners, we do the first half is spoiler free. So we're going to talk about the book plot in general. And then additionally, we're just kind of putting some input in on the theme within our own lives and our own journey as motherhood. But the concept of the podcast, you can listen because we're not going to offer spoilers until the second half of the podcast. And then we will give some strong spoiler warnings before we jump into that portion. So definitely if you haven't read this or if you have read this, we hope you enjoy the first part of the episode. And then if you have read it, we definitely hope you stick around. Our guest is Holly Browder. I almost said Holly King.
I mean, legally, the U.S. government, Corey's... I'm coming up on my 3rd wedding anniversary, okay? I haven't legally changed my name, not for any feminist reason. I've changed it on Facebook. I've changed it on Instagram. I just don't want to go to the Social Security office or the DMV. And then I'm also like, okay, I'm Holly Browder to everyone. The only person I'm not Holly Browder to is the government. And like, we don't even like the U.S. government. So like...
You're like, you don't even deserve my true name.
I'm like, what do you care what they know about me? Like,
yeah. The plot of Nightbitch. So Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder is a book. It's like horror magic realism. And it's a book about this woman who 2 years into motherhood suddenly kind of notices and feels like she's starting to turn into a dog at night. So say what you will about that, but it was definitely a very weird book, and I will give some trigger warnings if you're thinking about reading it. If you are sensitive to like anything happening to animals, animal on animal crime, even, I would steer clear from this one because there's some pretty graphic depictions of like some of that. But This is Holly, our resident mother. This is
thank you. Actually, I guess technically you'd be the resident mother because you've been a mother longer than I have. No, for sure.
I probably have like more stress lines. You can tell. You can tell who's been a mother longer because they actually just have like a deeper frustration and stress line. What did you think about the book and its overall kind of portrayal of early motherhood?
So I went into it because I think we had picked it, and then you were like, before I had read it, you were like, it's weird. Like, I'm just giving you a warning. And I was like, okay, maybe I won't like it as much as I was anticipating. But I loved it. Yeah. And I think the way it's written is so perfectly encapsulates what postpartum feels like and what becoming a mom feels like in a way that I don't think you can truly understand unless you've lived through it.
Yeah. And I don't even know, like, I was like, I think lived through it, but also struggled postpartum to some capacity.
Kind of like a lot of the feelings I had before, when I was pregnant, before I hit postpartum, which was like, I would kind of shy away or be upset when people would be like, you'll never feel the same. Your body will never feel the same. Like, it's really hard, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, well, I don't claim that experience. Like, it's not going to be like that for me. And then it was.
No, yeah. And I never gave it any thought. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just going to be a mom and then I'm going to be a good mom. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that hard. You're just a good mom.
Yeah.
And I wish I could go back in time. If there's anyone that I could slap in this world, it's me before having a baby.
Yes.
Because I was so just like, I didn't know, but also there is no way to explain. I thought there was no way to explain like what happens in your brain postpartum. And then I was reading from like the first chapter. I was so hooked on how
Yeah.
this author was describing the postpartum mental health and like your journey and that feeling. There's just so much in here in that first part where she's describing the like mundane and kind of the hurry up to slow down feeling, like just all of these different things that she's putting two and two together. I was like, oh, that's exactly how to explain it. But still, I don't even know that I would have heard it prior to having a kid, but it was really well done.
Yeah. I remember like calling my mom one day, like just crying because I was like, I was going through it postpartum and like crying, being like, this is so hard. This is so hard. Like, why didn't you tell me this was so hard? Like, and she was basically just like, I couldn't have, like, there's no way. You can't, you really can't explain it unless you've lived through it. And even if, and like you said, we've nannied, we've been, you were a camp counselor. Like, we know it's hard to take care of children, but I think a big part that's missing is that hormonal shift, which I was like so cocky about because I felt like my hormones were relatively balanced in pregnancy. I had an anxious pregnancy, but I'm an anxious person, so that's not surprising. Yeah. But I never had like crazy hormonal swings, like anything like that, where I felt like my hormones were kind of out of control in pregnancy. So I thought postpartum, I'm not going to have that postpartum. Like, I know people talk about the baby blues. That's not going to happen to me. Like, my hormones feel level. And I was so, so wrong. Like, and I read it's the largest drop in hormones a human will experience ever. So there is nothing that reaches that level of the hormone drop that you experience once you have a baby. But it was like, I could not even comprehend at the time, like, what I was going through.
Yeah. It's still even hard to like explain to other moms.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't even know how, because I remember going to your baby shower, I went to Alex's baby shower. I'm talking to all my other mom friends about how like exciting it is to be a mom. They're like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And it's like, what part of your tongue do you hold? And what part are you like, oh my God, your life is about to change in not a great way. Like, because you also don't know, like and not in a great way in like terms of that hormonal drop and your mental health. Like, it's like, I don't even know how to explain that to another woman, let alone someone who's so excited about motherhood.
Yeah.
That what that feels like. And then simultaneously, you're so happy to be a mom and you're so in love with what your body did and what you created. You feel so empowered. Like, it's a double-edged sword that you don't even begin to know. I mean, there's a quote in the book where she runs into a woman that she knew before she had a baby in the grocery store. And the rundown of that quote is it's poetic. Because then she just like rambles in her head about all these things that are going wrong. But how can you possibly put that into words? So then, of course, what comes out of her mouth is like, it's great. I love being a mom.
Yeah.
I love being home with my son. Because you do, but you also have all of these conflicting emotions.
Yeah. I think that kind of sums up motherhood well. Is like, it's always 50 different emotions about everything.
Yeah.
And holding space for like joy and sorrow and happiness and sadness and looking forward to the future and also mourning the things that are changing. Like, all of those kind of like dualities really exist a lot in motherhood.
Yeah. And I had the constant, like, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. I should be more present in this moment. And then that alone just gets anxiety inducing. Like, I shouldn't ever scroll my phone. I shouldn't ever, et cetera, et cetera. And like I had that as well and saw that kind of reflected, was the like defeated feeling that you get with the weight of the realization that like you're just never truly going to be understood or you're not going to be able to explain what happened to your mental state.
I have this story that I think really will probably sit with me for the rest of my life, of what it felt like very early on to be postpartum, to feel like no one can truly understand what you're going through. And
Yeah.
I was like 3 days postpartum, like fresh. It was like the day after we'd come home from the hospital. We had taken the baby to the pediatrician because you go like pretty much right away. I was like barely walking because I had a 3rd-degree tear and was like, probably, I don't even know how many stitches. But so we took the baby to the appointment, and I needed like pads and like paper towels, something at the store, something where before you have a baby, you're like, we'll just stop, we'll run in, we'll be in and out, no big deal. So we stop, and Corey, my husband, was already in my head like super dad. He was already like, like parking, whipping out the stroller, putting the baby in the stroller, covering her up. Like, we go in the store, we're like, okay, we'll split up, because that's commonly what we would do. We're grabbing 2 different things. He's like, I'll take the baby, and zooms off. And I'm like, oh my God, he's like already, how is he so good? Like, how is he a natural already? And I felt like I was on another planet from everyone else in the Wegmans. Like, it was like, I felt like I was behind this like thick pane of glass, like watching these people just like live their normal lives. And I was like, my life will never, ever, ever be the same ever again. And I was like standing looking at the pads and couldn't even like bring myself. I was just like staring at them, and then like staring at these people. And then I like wandered back to the front of the store to wait for Corey. And I was literally just like standing at the entrance of Wegmans, like sobbing.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, especially in that moment, I felt so far removed from anyone who had ever had this experience of going through birth, being so freshly postpartum, having your body like completely torn up, like all of these things. And then realizing that like all of the things I had done before, like he says in the book, get on schedule. I'm a big routine person. That's kind of how I regulate myself in my everyday life. Exercising is a big part of like regulating my mental health, regulating myself. All of a sudden, these tools that I couldn't reach at this stage of postpartum to kind of help manage my mental health was like, oh my God, what do I do?
Like, I'm at square one.
Exactly. And I would be, like in the past, when I was having a hard day, when I was like needed to work through something, I would like hop on the Peloton and take a class, and like that would help. And that's not accessible to me now.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you feel like basically a newborn baby deer. And you're like, how do I even manage not only like my regular mental health, but now on top of it, this crazy change in hormones and stuff, when I can't do any of the things I wanted, I used to be able to do to do that. Postpartum mental health in this country still isn't taken nearly as seriously as it needs to be, because why are you handing me a survey, right? Of the same 5 questions that you can easily lie on or lie to yourself.
And you're scared still at that point.
Exactly.
Like, I'm 2 weeks postpartum. I'm not going to tell you that I'm staying up and not sleeping because I'm crying, staring at my kid to make sure he's breathing. Like, you're going to lock me up. And she even talks about that in here.
Or even when you do, and I think it took me, my experience, I had, looking back, and it's so funny because I said this to my husband and he goes, yeah. Like, I discovered this probably 9-10 months postpartum, when I was in a little bit of a better place. I had like severe postpartum depression. Looking back, I didn't realize it at the time. It may be in my head, I was like, this is normal. It's the baby blues. It's normal. But I think I didn't realize how bad it was while it was happening, and probably Corey didn't either. And so I was answering those surveys like, I'm fine. And then I started to answer them a little bit more like, maybe I need some help. And nothing happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, oh, okay.
My OB looked at my stitches and was like, okay, you can go have sex now. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. She's like, they like checked my C-section scar, and she's like, you can drive a car again 2 weeks later. And I'm like, right. What do I do about the fact that everything else?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I don't even know where you think I'd be driving a car right now. I can't even, all I can do is stare at the wall.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
I will say, for our children, if they listen to this in the future,
right? Like,
this has nothing to do.
Guys.
You guys are amazing. Being a mom really is genuinely amazing. It really genuinely is the best thing I've ever done. I think Emma Stone is the one who has that quote that's like, she sees life in Technicolor after having her child. I very much feel that. But I do think it's also very important to talk about when it's not beautiful, when it's not joyful, when it's hard, because and now social media is getting better. Like women are sharing those things, but I think it's also important to be like, motherhood is hard, removed from how wonderful my child is, how much I love being a mom, how much joy she brings into my life. That's all its own pocket of things, but also it's hard separate from that.
Okay, now we are going to jump into like full spoiler territory. So if you have not read Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder and you do not want it spoiled for you, this is your heavy spoiler warning from here on out. If you don't care about spoilers, I don't typically care about spoilers, so I continue to listen. That is also fine. This is just up to you. We're just giving you the heads up that now we're going to really dive into Nightbitch. So, all right, let's talk about Nightbitch. Okay, I really liked her as an unhinged female character, and I think it's only because I have the experience of struggling postpartum, because I was reading a lot of reviews where people thought she was like super pretentious and she was super insufferable and blah, blah, blah. And I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
For sure. But I thought she was just really insecure and she was really struggling with her identity. Like she was one way before having a baby and then suddenly realizes no part of her can be that way anymore, like in the same capacity.
And I think that, like you're saying, people finding her pretentious and stuff, I think that's part of the whole experience. Like it's like she had these like like she talks about like when she got pregnant, she was like, oh, maybe I'll make my birth like an art scene, like maybe I'll make it like an art, it'll be like performance art or whatever. And I think that's an important part of her character, because it's like she was this kind of like carefree artist, like working at a gallery, like in the art world. And then the baby happened, and then all of a sudden you can't be carefree anymore. You can't be carefree as a mom. You can come off as carefree.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work though. So yeah. And I thought she was a very real character too. Like, I think she was experiencing motherhood in this way that a lot of people don't want to talk about. You experience it, but like it is the real experience for a lot of women. She also, like at the end leans into it, and she finds a way through motherhood back to her art, back to this like place of being like, I'm not the same. I am transformed. I am the Nightbitch. I'm not the same as before, but like I can have some of these pieces of my old life back and kind of marry them with my new life.
I thought it was interesting that she picked a dog. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, you're expected to just like function at full level after having a baby. And like I was like, okay, maybe the dog metaphor, another reason to lean into the dog metaphor is that they kind of have the same expectations, like that you are sweet, you're unconditional with your love, you are loyal, you're always there when needed for everyone. Like dogs are expected to behave when someone comes over and greet them and be like the most perfect little dog. And then they're expected to, just like show this unconditional love, always be so loyal, be happy go lucky. Like, when dog shows rage, it's a big problem. Dogs get put down for showing rage. Like it's when moms show rage, it's this other thing. Like this unspoken thing you can't talk about.
Yeah. Because it's like we domesticated dogs 10,000 years ago. And like you said, we expect domesticated dogs to be like perfect, sweet family, whatever. And like she's a wild dog in this. And it's like, I think the same parallel. We expect moms to be these domesticated, like wearing an apron, baking cookies, like loving every second of motherhood, being gentle, and like, that's just not the whole piece of the beast that you kind of become when you become a mom.
And it does feel like, because then you're like, okay, how do I even start to explain this to my partner? Or how do I even start to explain this to my other friends who don't have kids, and how I'm still expected to show up in the friendships the same way? Because you're just so fundamentally different. She has this moment where she's trying to explain to her husband or he's like, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know that I can tell him.
Yeah.
And that moment stuck out to me because when someone's like, how do you like being a mom? It really feels like you're about to tell them that like you turn into a dog at night. Like it feels that bizarre.
It really
like,
does.
Like, I don't know how to tell you.
Yeah.
Like the best way to explain it. It's like I turn into an animal.
Yeah.
And I liked that parallel, but
yeah. Yeah. And I think another part of the dog metaphor that I really liked is the very beginning when she's talking about I think she finds like a patch of hair on herself and she's like, I've never seen this patch of hair before. This feels so unfamiliar. And then she starts to kind of like look at her body and starts to see these things, kind of these like dog characteristics. Her canines are lengthening.
Mm-hmm.
She has a nub that might be a tail. And it's like she's exploring her body in this way that felt to me like a perfect metaphor for how your body feels postpartum.
Yeah.
Because you feel like all of a sudden you're like, what is this meat sack? It's not mine. Like, I don't like you're like, what?
You're like pushing on yourself in the shower. You're like, that was never squishy before.
Or you're just like, yeah, like why, does my pelvic floor feel like it's going to fall out of my vagina and hit the floor? Like, in this way of like, and again, in this transforming way where you're like, and what am I turning into?
Mm-hmm.
Like what beast am I turning into? So I think the metaphor works on the physical and also emotional, mental spectrum in that way, because you do completely transform physically, emotionally, mentally when you become a mom.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why that transformation works so well in this book.
Yeah. What was your Nightbitch moment? So she has this moment in the book where she goes, it's halfway through, she goes out and she like hunts animals all night long. But I thought that was a strong metaphor for that moment in motherhood where you're like, wait, I can do this. I'm like kind of badass. Like I feel empowered. What was your Nightbitch moment you feel, if you've had one?
I definitely have. I will say for me, it was probably that like 9-10 month mark. I was sleeping like a normal human again. That's when I started to be able to do things like really get back into a workout routine. I started lifting really heavy. I've started like hitting PRs that I had set before I was pregnant. So now all of a sudden I'm in a place that I never thought I would be, where I'm stronger now postpartum than I was before even getting pregnant. And that for me was like the switch. That for me was like, because like I mentioned before, people say all the time, your body will never be the same. This will never be the same, which is true. My body won't ever be the same.
You're like, mine's better.
Yeah, exactly. It's changed in a lot of ways, but that was my moment where I was like, oh, I can be a mom and I can be a mom and deadlift heavier than I ever deadlifted. I can be a mom and sprint on the bike, like, so that for me was that it really is tied very, very closely to my relationship with movement and my body in that way.
My Nightbitch moment was I was 3 months postpartum, and I remember like I was a single mom, and I remember I packed the car. I was like, I want to go to the beach. I want to go to the beach. That's what I like to do. Similar to you, like working out. I like to just like lay on the beach. You're like, before pregnancy, that was part of my identity. Like in the book, her art is a huge part of her identity, her art and her fulfillment in her career. And I can definitely resonate with that. My fulfillment in my career was like huge before becoming a mom. And then that has to change when you're a mom and you don't have any say in that. But the other piece is like, I just like to rot. And you will never rot again. If you ever want to rot again, you're not going to rot for at least 18 years. So
unless you get lucky and you have a baby who likes to rot.
Yeah.
Which my baby, she'll rot with me for like 3 minutes. And then she's like, okay, what are we doing?
My toddler headbutts me if I try to rot. But I like break my nose trying to rot. But so I like to rot, which is I like to go to the beach. And I was like, I want to go to the beach. How am I going to do this without a partner type thing? And I remember I packed the car. I packed the baby. I drove 3 hours to the beach and did the beach trip and came home. And I felt like Superwoman driving home with a packed car with full groceries. We ate fresh all week at the beach. I spent a week there and worked from the beach.
Yeah.
Like with a 3-month-old.
Yeah.
Which is
and
crazy. If you want an adrenaline rush, that will give it to you. It's kind of a really long way to get an adrenaline rush. Like you could probably just go get your nails done or something and like tell her it's a little messed up, but work up the courage to tell her it's a little messed up, and then you can have the same empowerment. Or you could have a kid and be 3 months postpartum single mom driving home from the beach. Like I was on fire. I was like, I can do this. I think that one of the things, we separate ourselves. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but we separate ourselves from other moms in like the judgments in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And she refers to the other moms in the mom group as mommies. Mm-hmm. And she always refers to herself as the mother, which is just like the more formal word. And she's looking at all these other women like with a softer, more sensitive, like
she's talking to Jen, who's also, I thought it was so funny. If you guys don't know Cecylia and I have, making fun of MLMs has been kind of like a corner of our friendship for a long time. Yeah, we really so I thought it was so funny that was a part of this book too. But Jen is the mommy who's like the head of the mommies. She's like and she's the perfectly coiffed, beautiful hair, nails, skin, whatever. She's got 2 perfectly coiffed twins. And in this passage, she's like, I think Jen mentions, oh, the twins have the grumpies. And Nightbitch is like, you don't even know what the grumpies are. Like, have you ever yelled at your twins in the middle of the night? Have you ever like flown into a rage at your child? Have you ever like locked yourself in the bathroom when your baby's like pounding on the door screaming for you? And I think that's such a good passage for like you were saying, when you're looking at other moms through maybe like a softer lens you're giving yourself. Mm-hmm. Where you're like, I experienced postpartum rage like pretty early on, and then looking at other moms and being like, they would never. So I think that was, she looks at these other moms, and I think it's also a good metaphor for like the social media aspect of it all, where you're seeing moms on social media who just like seem to have it perfectly together. Their body looks perfect. Their hair and makeup's perfect. Their baby's perfect. And you're like, has that mom ever like thrown a bowl of goldfish across the room because she's overwhelmed? Or like, is that just me? Like, do I have a problem? Like, am I a bad mom? Mm-hmm. Like, that's definitely an experience that I've had.
One of the things that has helped with postpartum rage is like addressing the root of the problem, which, tying into the novel, like the root is that she is rediscovering her new, in my opinion, it's like she's like rediscovering, accepting this new like feral, animalistic, rageful beast part of herself, and just figuring out, okay, what does it need? Like it needs to hunt, it needs to release, it needs to prey. And I think that's like a huge thing with postpartum rage and postpartum mental health, that I found, like finding the root of what's happening or what you need. Yeah. And then also assessing the situation as far as like what's happening. Because a lot of my rage and anxiety is I'm worried that I'm messing something up forever, or something is not going the way that I think it should. Yeah. So like realizing that I don't have to control this moment. Yeah. I don't have to control the situation. Like, what am I looking for here? And the answer is almost always control or clarity. Yeah. That's from growing up in the household that I grew up in. So I can't bring that to how I mother, because we'll all be miserable. I didn't realize how rigid I was until motherhood.
Oh my God. I mean, I knew how rigid
I had no
I've been a rigid bitch my whole life. But it throws you for a huge, like, that was another thing that I really struggled with, was like, I'm a very regimented person, and I have found it a little more now that she's older. It's a little easier to, but I think that's one of the reasons why the newborn stage was so hard for me, because you have no schedule. You can't implement a schedule on a newborn.
The newborn is just like, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah. Like, you have to go with the flow. Famously, not a person who goes with the flow. Okay. You have to
flow is not something I'm anywhere near.
I'm like, can we schedule the flow for like 2:30, because I fit my workout in, and then I have to shower, and then I have to like
do before the flow.
Eat 30 grams of protein before I can like flow out the door. Yeah. So and you're like, and that kind of harkens back to where in the schedule, in the book, he's like, just have a schedule. That Like,
You're
you
like, I
can't.
would actually love that.
Yeah, you're like the baby. Maybe you should tell your child to have a schedule. You
Yeah,
know,
when he
like
needs her for every single thing
yeah,
because he hasn't figured out like because okay, as a person who is super rigid, then you're going with the flow and you feel this deep resentment for anyone who can't just like figure it out without asking you a
yeah,
single question
yes,
because you're like, I, the most rigid of rigid,
yeah.
have gone with the flow.
That's kind of what that transformation in a lot of ways represents too.
Yeah.
It's like she needs to get out and hunt and like let her wild woman come out so she can show up as a better mom.
Metaphor of like having too much of that release. Elephant in the room, guys.
Yeah,
she murders your cat.
She guts the cat. That
Which
part
is
was a little
and I was trying to see the metaphor piece of it.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, we just jumped off the deep end. Like, it was just, that was horrific.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I thought that one of the things the cat could potentially represent is like obligation.
Mhm.
She talks about, obligation as far as like these responsibilities that are still present after motherhood.
Yeah.
And they somehow seem so much less important
Yeah.
and like more, they just seem insignificant after you've had a kid. You're like, I'm keeping a kid alive all day.
Yeah.
Something else needs me, not necessarily a cat, but some other obligation. Like I have to do my taxes. I have to do like whatever that thing is that just like sets you over the edge.
Yeah.
Because it's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was, I thought that was a powerful metaphor. I wish it had happened a little bit differently, but
yeah, it was just it was a little graphic.
I audibly gasped. And
I
then
think I did too. I think I
small.
was in the Orlando airport when I read that, and I was like,
what? You didn't
also
want
the
to-
whole scene where she's having dinner with her art grad school friends, and then she says she can crush a walnut with her vagina. I also read that in the Orlando airport. So
pop off. So that is actually a great metaphor. The cat, like whatever obligation that is that kind of sets you over the edge to then force you to look inward at yourself, because then it goes right into a chapter about her own childhood trauma.
Right.
I thought that was really, hated that the cat got gutted.
Yeah.
But I thought it was it was like a mental snap.
Mhm.
And then she looked inward and was like, what is this coming from?
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
I think you're right. I think that's kind of like, you reach that breaking point where you're like, I have to look inward, and also something has to change because I can't go around gutting cats. Like that's not a reasonable outlet for what I'm feeling.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. I can't just be
I can't just be gutting cats and then pretending like the knife and the pan fell on every single one.
Yeah.
Eventually someone's going to catch up to the hustle. This is a great passage for kind of my last thoughts. Okay, so she says, at times she terrified herself, wondering if she was a god, if being a mother was one way of being a god. Of course, she couldn't strike anyone down with a lightning bolt, but she could bring a person into being using little more than a handful of clay. Way less, in fact. How were mothers even a thing? How had they not been outlawed? They were divine, beyond horrifying. I think and I think that's why a lot of the like kind of gore in the book is important, because motherhood is like gory, like especially, the birth and the healing process. But I remember I had my baby. I remember feeling that, being like, holy shit, every single mom, every single person, has a mom who's been through this. How are we not talking about that all the time?
Yeah.
And how have we gotten to this place in the patriarchy and society or whatever, where men are the strong ones? Like, are you like, a man could never. We're not talking enough about how hard pregnancy, labor, postpartum, all of that is. And we are not giving women nearly enough credit.
Just the resilience to keep going. You're sleep deprived. You never know how much you can do as a mom on not enough sleep to operate.
Yeah. And I felt that like when I went back to work, and I like same experience. I was like pumping, like doing all the stuff, working, whatever. And I just remember being like, why aren't you guys clapping for me? Like what?
Legit.
I'm like, I slept 2 broken hours last night, got up, got the baby ready, brought her to daycare, came to work, pumped 3 times, did all my work, went home, worked out, made dinner, put the baby down. Like, I'm like, where's my parade? Like, this is like, and I even brought it up in my performance review, like where they were like, what's something you accomplished this year? And I said, I came back to work 3 months postpartum. and
Yeah.
hopped right back into my job. Like I didn't have the most earth-shattering change to my life 12 weeks ago.
And you feel so resentful because you're like, why didn't any of you tell me?
Yes.
Like,
and
what?
also why are we not like holding any extra space for the women who are doing this? Like, you know, and that's not just to say for working women, stay-at-home moms too, you know, same thing.
Yeah.
Like for any mom.
Really quick before we go, Holly has several resources just to kind of plug really quick that we'll also tag in the show notes, as well as any additional that we end up providing. But
Yeah.
definitely check the show notes. And then Holly, if there's any resources that you wanted to talk about.
So Postpartum Support International is an organization that has a lot of resources. So their website is postpartum.net. They also have a hotline. So that's great for if you need a little bit more immediate help. That's 1-800-944-4773. And then 988 is like the suicide and crisis hotline, not postpartum specific, just another great resource to have. This the phone number for this one. This is the maternal mental health hotline. 1-833-TLC mama.
Love it. That sounds so MLM.
But yeah, that's the maternal, and that's hosted by the Maternal and Child Health Bureau. Other good resources, being honest with your OB is great. I loved my OB office. I wish I had been a little bit more open with them and kind of asked for a little bit more help, but it's hard to ask for help. So
yeah, and pushing for resources, like, and what can I do about this? Because like kind of like we said earlier with the surveys, they're not going to follow up with you proactively. So being like, hey, I'm struggling, what can I do?
Also, I will plug having a person. So for me, it was my husband. Like he was very aware the whole time of everything I was dealing with, and like was a great outlet, someone that I felt like I could honestly talk to and tell him kind of all the deep, dark things that I was experiencing. It doesn't have to be your partner. I know that's not everybody's experience. A sister or a friend, Cecylia or I, you can always reach out to us. Like we obviously have experienced all of this. So but I think having one person that you really feel like you can be genuinely honest with is also very important, because that's another thing in the book it doesn't seem like she really has, and I think that makes a big difference too.
And then one resource I'll plug really quick is the La Leche League. So if you are looking to breastfeed, I could not care less how any mom feeds their baby. But if you want to breastfeed and you're finding it difficult to find resources and support in that journey, they have a lot of resources in your area. They have meetup groups that you can go and ask questions. And they have free resources. So if you're looking to breastfeed and want support in a successful breastfeeding journey, that was a great resource for me as well.
Also local plug, the lactation room in Mount Airy.
Yes. Thank you guys for listening. Holly, thank you so much for joining me. This was the best. I'm so happy that you kind of read a book and came on the podcast. It's crazy. But any final thoughts on Nightbitch, motherhood, anything in general?
Thank you for having me. I love Shelf Absorbed. So follow us everywhere. Follow Cecylia everywhere. I mean, like us, I'm a guest this week, but she has a lot of great insights about everything. And also, I just want to say you have guided. I'm not going to cry. I might cry. I'm not going to cry. You've guided me very well through motherhood, and I really appreciate that. And sometimes I feel like I harbor a lot of guilt for not being there at the beginning of your motherhood journey, because I had no idea how hard it was. But just thank you for being kind of like a guiding light for me through this. And also thank you for getting me back into books, because that is really you and the podcast and everything. I was a voracious reader growing up, kind of lost a lot of it through school, and then of course becoming a mom, and I found my way back to it, and it's just awesome. So thank you.
You're gonna make me cry. That was like the best leaving speech ever. So yeah, now there's a competition for complimenting me on the exit speech. Thank you again, Holly. It's very vulnerable to come on here and talk about some of the, especially the topic that we're talking about today. And I just want to say to anyone who is feeling, harboring any of that guilt, I feel that we all hit that wall in motherhood where we're like, oh my God, there are so many people that I was not there for, like that I didn't get it. And I swear nobody holds on to that the way we do. Like we all know that you just can't know until you know, and so definitely let go of any of that guilt if anyone's experiencing that. But thank you guys. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at Shelf Absorbed Podcast. And then if you want discussion questions or some of our favorite quotes from Nightbitch, you can go to our website. So if you're thinking about doing this for a book club or something, we have new this season, the books that we're reading where we have discussion questions that we put on our website. So that's www.shelfabsorbedpodcast.com. And, you can kind of see some of our highlighted quotes and just continue that discussion with us. So, yeah, we'll always pass listeners along to Holly. If you had anything or reached any moms today, we'll pass your info along as well. So thank you.